Something about that photograph never made sense. It wasn't cursed. It wasn't edited. It didn't contain a ghost hiding in the background or a shadow standing where no person should have been. At least, that's what everyone believed in the beginning. The strange part wasn't what appeared inside the picture. The strange part was what happened after someone looked at it. And according to everyone who witnessed the events that followed, nothing in that family was ever the same again. If someone had told this story years ago, most people would have laughed. A brother scrolling through his phone late at night. One random photograph. One ordinary face. And somehow, an entire family's future changing before sunrise. It sounded impossible. Yet every person connected to the story remembered the exact same night. The same hour. The same silence. The same look that crossed his face. Because whatever he saw, he never managed to explain. His name was Daniel. 29 years old. Quiet. Analytical. The type of man who questioned everything before believing anything. Friends joked that if aliens landed in his backyard, Daniel would first ask for scientific proof before running away. He trusted evidence. Logic. Patterns. Never feelings. Never intuition. That was exactly why what happened terrified everyone around him. Daniel lived only 15 minutes away from his younger brother, Ethan. They weren't identical twins, but people constantly mistook them for each other. Both tall. Dark hair. Calm voices. The difference was invisible to strangers but obvious to anyone who truly knew them. Daniel observed life. Ethan chased it. Daniel avoided relationships. Ethan believed every person entered his life for a reason. For months Ethan had been strangely distracted. Sometimes smiling without explanation. Sometimes disappearing for hours. Sometimes staring out the window with the kind of expression people wear when their minds are somewhere impossible to reach. Whenever Daniel asked what was going on, Ethan always answered the same way. I'm waiting for something. Not someone. Something. It was an odd choice of words. Daniel noticed. But he didn't push further. Some questions only made people retreat deeper into themselves. Then came Friday night. Rain tapped softly against Daniel's apartment windows. The city outside had almost disappeared beneath thick fog. Streetlights floated like blurred stars. The kind of weather that made even familiar neighborhoods feel unfamiliar. At exactly 11:42 p.m. Daniel's phone vibrated. A message from Ethan. No words. Only one image. Just a photograph. No explanation. No caption. Nothing. Daniel almost ignored it. He had work early the next morning. He planned to answer later. But something impossible to describe even years afterward, made him unlock the screen. He opened the image. For nearly 20 seconds. He simply stared. Not because the picture was frightening. It wasn't. It showed an ordinary young woman standing beside a quiet lake during sunset. The light reflected across the water. A faint breeze lifted strands of her hair. She wasn't posing. She looked as if someone had called her name unexpectedly. Natural. Unaware. Real. There were no strange reflections. No hidden figures. No obvious clues. Nothing unusual. Yet Daniel couldn't look away. His heartbeat slowed. Then sped up. Then slowed again. He zoomed in. Then out. Then back in. Why? He didn't know. He later admitted something investigators found deeply unsettling. I wasn't searching for anything. I felt like something inside the photograph was searching for me. No one understood what he meant. Not even Daniel himself. He finally replied. Who is she? The typing bubble appeared. Stopped. Appeared again. Disappeared. 3 full minutes passed. Then Ethan answered. I think she's the one. Daniel frowned. The one? Another pause. The girl I told you about. Daniel sat upright. He remembered. Months earlier Ethan had confessed something ridiculous. He kept dreaming about someone whose face he couldn't fully remember. The dreams always ended before he reached her. Each time he woke feeling as though he'd forgotten someone important. Daniel had dismissed it as stress. People dreamed strange things every night. Nothing mysterious about that. Until Ethan sent another message. I finally found her. Daniel looked back at the photograph. She looked completely ordinary. So why did his chest suddenly feel heavy? Why did the room seem quieter than before? Why did he instinctively lock his apartment door? Even though he was already alone? He laughed at himself. Stress. Long work week. Nothing more. He set the phone aside. Walked into the kitchen. Filled a glass with water. Returned. The photograph was still open. He couldn't remember leaving it on the screen. Again he stared. Again that impossible sensation returned. As though the woman wasn't simply photographed. As though she had interrupted a moment instead of being captured inside one. Then something happened that Daniel never told police during his first interview. Because he feared how insane it sounded. He whispered her name. Except. He didn't know her name. It simply slipped out. Softly. Without thinking. A single word. When investigators later asked how he knew that name, Daniel had no answer. Because according to Ethan, it wasn't even close to her real name. The next morning Daniel woke exhausted. He had slept barely 3 hours. Dark circles framed his eyes. Coffee tasted bitter. His apartment felt colder than usual. While getting ready for work, he noticed something odd. His living room picture frame had fallen from the shelf. Glass shattered across the floor. No earthquake. No open windows. Nothing that could explain it. He cleaned the mess. Ignored it. Left for work. By noon strange coincidences began piling together. His laptop crashed 3 separate times. A client he hadn't spoken with in 4 years suddenly called asking an unrelated question. His watch stopped precisely at 11:42. Exactly when Ethan had sent the photograph. Coincidence? Probably. Yet Daniel kept checking his phone. Waiting for another message. Nothing came. At 6:18 p.m. he drove toward Ethan's apartment without calling first. Something urged him there. Not fear. Curiosity. When Ethan opened the door, he looked different. Not sick. Not injured. Just changed. People often describe trauma by saying someone looks older overnight. This wasn't that. It was as though Ethan had stopped expecting tomorrow. His apartment lights remained off despite the approaching darkness. You came. I was nearby. No, you weren't. Daniel froze. You've never lied well. Neither spoke for several seconds. Finally Daniel asked. So, who is she? Ethan looked toward the photograph still displayed on his phone. Then quietly answered. I don't think she knows I exist. Daniel blinked. You've never met? No. You've spoken? No. So this is just someone online? Ethan slowly shook his head. I don't think that's possible anymore. What isn't? I don't think she's just someone. Daniel almost laughed. Instead, he didn't. Because Ethan wasn't smiling. He wasn't joking. He looked genuinely frightened. Then he said something that made Daniel's stomach tighten. I think she's connected. Connected to what? Our family. Daniel stared. How? I don't know. Then why say that? Because Grandma knew her. Silence. Daniel almost stood up. Their grandmother had died 11 years earlier. She had never used social media. Never owned a smartphone. Never left behind any photographs matching the young woman. What are you talking about? Ethan walked toward an old wooden cabinet. Opened the bottom drawer. Removed a faded notebook. The leather cover had nearly crumbled apart. Their grandmother's handwriting filled every page. Recipes. Family birthdays. Random thoughts. Nothing unusual. Until Ethan opened one particular page. The handwriting abruptly changed. Larger. Shakier. Written in blue ink. If the girl by the water is ever found, do not let Daniel see her first. Daniel felt every muscle in his body freeze. His own name. Written years before smartphones had become common. Years before the photograph existed. Years before anyone supposedly knew this woman. He grabbed the notebook. Examined the ink. The paper. Everything appeared authentic. No. He whispered. No, someone added this. They tested it. Who tested it? The archive specialist. You had this tested? I found the page 2 months ago. Daniel looked up. You never told me. I thought someone forged it. And now? Ethan's voice barely emerged. I don't think anyone did. Daniel couldn't breathe properly. He kept rereading the sentence. One line. Only one line. Yet it shattered every logical explanation he had. If the girl by the water is ever found, do not let Daniel see her first. Why? Why his name? Why that description? Why had Grandma written it? Unless she hadn't. Daniel suddenly noticed faint indentations beneath the page. Words pressed into the paper from another sheet long removed. Almost invisible. He tilted the notebook toward the light. Letters slowly emerged. Not complete. Just fragments. He will remember. Before she. The lake. Don't. Nothing else. Someone had torn away the original page, leaving only pressure marks behind. Daniel's pulse quickened. Where did you find this notebook? In Grandma's attic. When? The day after I dreamed about her again. Daniel looked sharply at him. The girl? Ethan nodded. Every dream ends at the same lake. Daniel stared at the photograph. Then back at the notebook. Same lake. Girl by the water. Grandmother's warning. His own unexplained reaction. None of it made sense. Yet every piece seemed to fit together anyway. Outside. Rain began falling again. Harder this time. Thunder rolled across the city. The apartment lights flickered. Then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the room. For only 2 seconds. Power returned. Everything looked normal. Except. The photograph on Ethan's phone had changed. Daniel leaned closer. The image still showed the woman beside the lake. But now. Standing several feet behind her. Where moments earlier there had been only empty shoreline. Was the faint outline of a man. Not clear enough to identify. Not blurred enough to dismiss. Just standing there. Watching. Neither brother had noticed him before. Neither could explain why he was suddenly there. Ethan whispered the words neither of them wanted to say. "I swear he wasn't in the picture last night." Daniel reached for the phone with trembling hands. As his fingers touched the screen, the mysterious figure appeared to lift his head slightly. And then, the display went completely black. Daniel's fingers remained frozen above the phone. The message had vanished so quickly that it almost felt imagined. "You weren't supposed to see him yet." Neither of the brothers spoke. The silence inside the apartment became almost unbearable. Outside, rain continued pouring against the windows, but strangely, neither of them could hear it anymore. It was as if the world beyond the walls had suddenly been muted. Daniel slowly looked toward the window. The drops were still sliding down the glass. Cars were still moving below. Tree branches still swayed in the wind. Everything looked normal. But there wasn't a single sound. Then, 3 slow knocks echoed from the apartment door. Knock. 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 Both brothers stared toward the entrance. Neither had heard footsteps in the hallway. Daniel cautiously walked to the peephole. The corridor was empty. Not a single person. He unlocked the door anyway. Outside lay a small brown envelope. No address. No stamp. Only one word written across the front in faded blue ink. Daniel. His heartbeat quickened. The paper felt strangely cold. Not damp from the rain. Not dusty. Just, unnaturally cold. Ethan shut the door behind him. "You should open it." Daniel carefully unfolded the brittle flap. Inside rested an old Polaroid photograph. Its edges had yellowed with age. At first glance it showed a family picnic beside a peaceful lake. Children running. Adults laughing. A wooden dock stretching over calm water. Everything looked perfectly ordinary. Until Daniel recognized the faces. Their grandmother. Their grandfather. A much younger version of their father. Their aunt. A little boy who looked exactly like Ethan. Another little boy. Daniel himself. His breathing became shallow. Their family had never owned a camera during those years. At least, that was what their father had always claimed. Then Daniel noticed someone standing near the edge of the lake. A young woman. Long dark hair. A pale blue dress moving gently in the wind. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't looking at the family. She was staring directly into the camera. It was the same woman from Ethan's photograph. Exactly the same. Not older. Not younger. Exactly the same face. Daniel slowly turned the Polaroid over. On the back, written in his grandmother's unmistakable handwriting, were 7 chilling words. "She always returns when the brothers begin to remember." Ethan whispered. "Remember, what?" Daniel didn't answer. Because at that exact moment, something stirred inside his mind. A memory. Not complete. Only fragments. Cold water. A wooden dock. Someone shouting his name. A little girl laughing. Then darkness. He grabbed his head. "I've been there." Ethan frowned. "What?" "The lake." "No, you haven't." "I have." Daniel's voice sounded distant. "I just don't remember when." Suddenly, an old grandfather clock in the corner began ticking. Tick. 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 Both brothers slowly turned toward it. The clock hadn't worked since their grandmother died 11 years earlier. Yet now its pendulum swung smoothly from side to side. The hands moved closer to midnight. Then, Without warning. They stopped. 11:42 p.m. The exact moment Ethan had first sent the photograph. The lights instantly went out. This time, they did not come back. Darkness swallowed the apartment. Daniel could hear breathing. Not Ethan's. Someone else's. Slow. Patient. Standing somewhere inside the room. Ethan whispered. Daniel. What? There's someone outside the door. A thin beam of moonlight shone through the frosted glass beside the entrance. A tall silhouette stood perfectly still. Its head tilted slightly. One arm slowly lifted. In its hand was another photographs. Part 3. The silhouette didn't move. It didn't knock again. It simply stood beyond the frosted glass, holding the photograph as though it had been waiting for years to deliver it. Daniel's pulse pounded in his ears. Ethan. He whispered. I see it. Neither brother dared to step closer. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, the figure released the photograph. It drifted to the floor outside the apartment door. The instant it touched the ground, the silhouette disappeared. Not by walking away. Not by turning a corner. It was simply gone. Daniel yanked the door open. The hallway stretched in both directions beneath flickering lights. Empty. No footsteps. No elevator moving. No sound except the distant hum of electricity returning to the building. The photograph lay exactly where it had fallen. He bent down and picked it up. Unlike the old Polaroid, this one looked newer. Yet its colors had faded strangely, as though time itself had drained the life from it. Daniel turned it over. Nothing was written on the back. He looked at the front. His heart nearly stopped. The image showed two little boys standing at the end of a weathered wooden dock. One was clearly Ethan. The other was Daniel. Neither of them could have been older than 6. But there was one impossible detail. Their family had never taken photographs during those years. Their father had insisted on that countless times. We didn't even own a camera back then. Yet here was undeniable proof that someone had. Daniel leaned closer. A woman's hand rested gently on his younger shoulder. Only her hand was visible. Around her wrist shimmered a delicate silver bracelet. His breath caught. The bracelet. He had seen it before. Not in real life. In the broken flashes of memory that had begun haunting him. Cold water. A wooden dock. A silver bracelet. A child's laughter. The memories were growing stronger. Then Ethan noticed something else. There was another child. Daniel looked again. Near the edge of the photograph stood a third small figure. But the face had been scratched away. Not damaged by age. Not accidentally. Someone had deliberately erased that child's identity. Deep white lines crossed where the face should have been. Almost violently. Daniel whispered. Who was standing there? Before Ethan could answer, Daniel's phone rang. Unknown number. He hesitated before answering. Silence greeted him. 10 long seconds passed. Then an elderly woman's voice spoke softly. You remembered too early. The call ended. Daniel immediately called the number back. The automated response chilled him. The number you are trying to reach does not exist. He slowly lowered the phone. Ethan stared at him. What did she say? Daniel repeated the sentence. Ethan's expression changed instantly. I've heard that before. Daniel looked up sharply. Where? My dreams. You never told me. I thought they were only dreams. Ethan's voice trembled. Every time I see the woman by the lake, an old woman appears before I wake up. What does she look like? I never see her face. What does she say? The exact same words. You remembered too early. The apartment temperature dropped. Their breath became visible in the air. The lights flickered once. Twice. 3 times. Then the television across the room turned on by itself. Neither brother had plugged it in. Static flooded the screen. A loud hiss filled the apartment. Daniel reached for the remote. Nothing happened. The volume continued rising. The static slowly shifted. Shapes emerged. Dark trees. Still water. A wooden dock. The lake. The image sharpened for only a few seconds. The mysterious woman stood at the end of the dock. Her blue dress moved gently in the wind. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking at someone standing behind it. Slowly. She raised one finger, pointing past the person filming, as if warning them. The television instantly exploded back into static. Daniel spun around. The apartment behind him was empty. When he looked back at the television, it had switched itself off. Silence returned. Ethan picked up their grandmother's notebook. Something slipped from between 2 pages. A folded sheet of paper landed softly on the floor. Neither of them had noticed it before. Daniel unfolded it carefully. Inside was half of an old hand-drawn map. The paper had clearly been torn down the middle years earlier. Near the center, a circle surrounded a handwritten label. Ashmere Lake. Below it, their grandmother had written another message. If both brothers return together, the truth will return with them. Daniel stared at the words. Ashmere Lake. I've never heard that name, Ethan said. Neither have I. Yet somehow, both of them knew exactly what it looked like. The shape of the shoreline. The old dock. The crooked willow tree leaning over the water. How could they remember a place they'd supposedly never visited? Daniel looked more closely at the map. In the bottom corner, a date had been written. October 14, 2004. His hands began shaking. No. What? That's impossible. Why? Daniel swallowed. That's the date Mom always mentioned. Ethan frowned. What date? The day we almost drowned. Silence. Their mother had only spoken about the accident once. Whenever they asked where it had happened, their father would interrupt the conversation. Neither of them had ever learned the location, or why they remembered absolutely nothing about it. Daniel slowly raised the damaged photograph again. 3 children. 1 face erased. 1 memory missing. What if? Daniel whispered. Ethan looked at him. What if there weren't just 2 brothers at that lake? The room felt colder. Neither of them wanted to say the thought forming in their minds. A 3rd child. Someone completely erased from every photograph. Someone no one in the family had ever mentioned. Then, from somewhere deep inside the apartment building, a child laughed. Soft. Playful. Far too close. It echoed through the hallway. Moments later, another sound followed. A tiny voice. Barely above a whisper. You finally remembered. Daniel slowly turned toward the apartment door. Something had been written on the frosted glass from the outside. 5 words. Come back before sunrise, alone. And beneath the message, pressed against the glass, was the unmistakable outline of a small child's hand.